So today we're going to talk about the Genesis Mini. No, wait, not that one. This one. The one that I previewed in my shorts. So I've had a few days to look over this and try it out and everything, and I figured I'd give my impressions on it. It's not going to be a full review. I'm not going to go through each game, each menu setting. I'm not going to tear it apart or anything like that because there's plenty of videos out there already about it. But I figured, you guys might want to see what I think of this thing. So, but yeah, there's the new one. Here's the old one. If you follow me on Twitter, I posted a family photo of both originals as well as the minis, and people seem to get a kick out of it. So it is definitely smaller, but it's still proportionate. So cool. I did not really show off the box much, so here's the box. Back with all the games, original Genesis games, some ports from arcades and some unreleased games, and then their Sega CD list. Here's the front, and then all the legal stuff. And yeah, so let's go ahead and we'll hook it up, and I'll go over some of the menu options with you, some of the games, and give you my thoughts. So I'm going to be doing some capturing as well as some live recording of a screen. It is the return of my janky setup, but I've got it zoomed in so you can't really see everything. I don't have enough HDMI ports on my television or my HDMI switch, but I figured this will do just fine. So like I said, I've had some time to, mess around with it a little bit. I went through all the options and everything. Let's see, let's readjust this to be A to Z, so how you would normally see when you first boot it up. So it's similar layout to the original Genesis Mini. You got your box art either displayed front facing, or you can go ahead and do spine art to save some room. That's kind of neat. Settings are pretty much the same too. They have a health warning, as well as you can download the manuals, which is really nice. Choose your languages, game settings. You've got your 4x3, 16x9, 4x3 with or without borders. Sound setting is probably the newest option, and you can either do the Genesis 2 sound engine or the original Genesis one. I'm not going to go into debating which one's better. There's plenty of forum posts out there that, will try to prove one or the other. So we'll go ahead and skip that argument. But there's an option for the mode button where you can use the mode button to bring up a quick menu. Hold it down for 1 second, 3 seconds, or if you just turn it off. In this case, you would hold start to bring up the quick menu. The reason you want to do that is because some games actually utilize the mode menu. Not many, but some did. There's also the option of, at least the original 6-button controller. If you held mode down, you can switch it into 3-button mode. There are a handful of games that don't work right with the 6-button controller, so there was an option to disable it. That's basically it. I'm not going to go into each individual setting like that. I'm not going to show you every single game because there's plenty of YouTubers out there that have already done so, and I don't want this to be a hour-long video. So instead, what we're going to do is just go into a couple of games here, 2 or 3, and go from there. Mansion of Hidden Souls. Never played this one, so did I hit B by mistake? Yes, I did. So just go through a few of them. I've already set, my background to be these blueprints of the Genesis 2. So, as well as looks like the original Genesis on the right side. The Sega CD emulation seems to be pretty good. It does seem to have a little bit of loading time when it's switching to different scenes, loading different audio tracks, things like that. I don't know if that was intentional to try and replicate the original Sega CD environment, or if this is just how it has to be. So apparently this is supposed to be some sort of horror type game, but I've never played it before, so all pre-rendered graphics. You do have, pressing the mode button will bring up your save slot menu, so you can save and load, reset the game. resume the game or return to the main menu. Let's go ahead and just create a quick save state, just for the sake of it, and then return to the main menu because I have a feeling this game is going to take a while to get started, and like I said, I don't want this to be an hour-long video. So, when you have the default arrangement, you see right now it shows A to Z, you can actually have it recently played. So, you know, these are the games that I recently played, and it'll show up in order, and like I showed earlier, you got different options here. So let's do one more game. Let's do a Genesis game. Let's do Lightning Force. Sorry. Original mode or high speed mode? Let's do original. That's the other thing, is some games have multiple options. For example, Sonic CD, you can choose between the North American soundtrack or the European one. And I believe with Streets of Rage 3, you can choose to play Bare Knuckle 3, which is the Japanese version of it, and it's supposed to be favored among Streets of Rage fans compared to Streets of Rage 3, so... Sure, why not? No idea what I'm doing. Oh, it's a shmup. Not a huge fan of shmups because I'm not really good at them, and I'm feeling like I'm glad that I took the normal mode and not the hyperspeed one, because I would probably have already failed multiple times and completely lost all my lives. It's got a good soundtrack so far, so that's neat. But you get the idea. Let's go ahead and go back to the main menu. And let's go ahead and we'll bring up Virtua Racing, because I know you all want to see what the SVP chip can do emulated, or at least Sega's interpretation of the emulation of the chip. And I already have a save state there, so let's go ahead and load. And this is one of the games that does support 6 buttons, although X, Y, and Z just changed the view. A is brake, B is gas, and C resets the view to default. You do a far zoom, in zoom, almost like a first-person view. It runs well. I mean, it's Virtua Racing on the Genesis. It's not going to be close to the arcade version, but it's good enough. You know, I mean, for the time, it was very impressive. But you get the idea. So, I mean, that's basically it. You'll know the available games just based on the box that I showed earlier. You probably visited the website to see what it was going to come with. So, like I said, I'm not going to go through each game because, again, I don't want this to be a super long video. I just wanted to show off a couple of games so you see what it looked like. I did turn scan lines on. Some people don't like that. I don't know how the capture device is going to handle scan lines. We'll see. But that's basically it for the actual interface, the way it works, the way it plays. I'm going to give you some of my final thoughts now. So, it's not too different from the Genesis Mini 1 in terms of the interface and everything. Again, except for the different sound options that they give you now. The console itself, again, it's modeled after the Model 2 Genesis. I think it's like a quarter scale or something like that. It's got the flap for the fake Sega CD attachment, if you manage to get one of those, as well as being just as difficult to put back on. The fake cartridge flap, in case you got one of those fake cartridges. The power switch is modeled after the Japanese one and not the European or North American, which was a push button similar to the reset button. I think that's just the sacrifice they had to make on top of the fact that the LEDs are not there. The Model 1 did have one. But the other thing that I noticed when I first took it out of the box is it's using USB micro B, and I don't know why in this day and age when USB-C is pretty much king, why they would do that, unless they had some extra USB Type-B ports left over. I don't know. It's probably about as heavy as the Mini 1, maybe slightly heavier because of the extra shielding that's inside. Let's take a look at the box again. Here is the list of games officially. You've got all the Genesis games here. You've got the arcade ports here. as well as I think just some that were never released. And then you've got the Sega CD games here, with the exception, I think, of Night Striker, which I think is a Mega CD game and not a Sega CD game. The list of games is actually pretty good, considering the fact that some of these are actually rarer games that are hard to find nowadays. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, though. In terms of the overall value and everything, from my standpoint, I think it's worth it. It's $100 for the console itself. The shipping on the other hand was not. It was $30. And that's because of the fact that even though you could purchase it through Amazon US, it was shipped from Amazon Japan. I don't know why Sega did it that way. Maybe logistics, I'm not sure. But it's $30 to ship it, at least to my house. I think prices range anywhere from like $15 to $40, give or take, depending on where you are. So it's kind of unfortunate. In terms of collectors and things like that, if you're just going to collect this to leave it on a shelf and you're never going to touch it again, I wouldn't waste the money. If you really want something like this to display, go on Etsy or something and look for like a repro Raspberry Pi case or something like that. In terms of picking it up and playing once in a while, it might be worth it to you for that. If you're going to pick it up more than once in a while, you're really going to put it through its paces, that's definitely a good purchase for you to make. Regarding the games that I mentioned earlier, some of these are rarer and harder to find and can go for a pretty penny on the collector's market right now. For example, Final Fight CD loose is about $50. Now, $50 isn't going to break the bank for a lot of people in the collecting game, but it's still a lot of money, right? Night Striker, which I mentioned earlier, never released here in North America, or I even think in PAL regions. That goes for about $85 loose. Makes sense because it's even rarer. It was only released in Japan. I get it. Robo Eliste or Eliste, or however you say that, $110 loose. Now you're starting to get a little bit pricier. When it comes to the arcade ports, can't really put a price on them necessarily because they were never officially released on cartridges, so we'll ignore that. However, we'll switch over to some of the cartridges. For example, Hellfire, $65 loose. Rainbow Islands is going for $75 loose, but again, it was a Japan-only release. However, Crusader Centy goes for $580 loose, just on its own. If you want it complete, it's about $1,500, $1,600. And if you still have one new in box, you might be able to get as much as $4,000 for it. Now again, these aren't necessarily hard prices, it's just what the community has determined that they're worth. Any two of those games, with the exception of Crusader Centy, if you really wanted to play them and you wanted a legitimate way to do so, 100% worth it just to pick it up just for those two games that you were looking for. If you just wanted to play Crusader Centy, there's no doubt that it's worth it just to buy this, unless you really wanted the physical copy. So I'm really glad that Sega came out with this, so there's like an official way to play it without resorting to some of the grayer areas of the internet, we'll say. So I guess the $130 overall that I paid for this is worth it just for that one game alone. So, plus, some of the other games that I never really got a chance to try out either. Never played Toe Jam and Earl at all. And then, of course, overall, we know these mini consoles are relatively easy to hack, although as of this recording, this has not been hacked yet. I don't think anyone's attempted it yet, at least they haven't said anything. But it'd be nice to see if they get in there and they find out that the missing games from here are actually included on there. For example, the Lunar series. Those are other rare games, hard to find, physical, so I was kind of hoping they would bring it over to the US. They never did because of some copyright dispute with working designs and the script or something like that. I'm not 100% versed on that, so I'm not going to go into it too much. But it'd be interesting to see if the firmware actually has them on there, and those can be unlocked. At the very least, if this thing does get opened up and modded, I might be able to just dump the ISO onto it and go from there. Yeah, so that's my impression. I like it. It's going to be a lot of fun playing with some of these games that I've never tried before, and even revisiting some of the ones that I have. Maybe trying some of the ones that I wasn't a huge fan of when I was a kid, giving it another chance, things like that. So there you go. Did you pick one of these up? If you did, leave a comment below. Let's talk about it. Like I said, I think these should still be available to purchase. At least some variant of it is. But I don't know how long it's going to last for, because these are in limited quantity. So yeah, if you've got any questions or suggestions, tips like that, leave them down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks all, and I'll catch you later.